Vintage Sand.
Hello, everybody. Enter laughing as we always do. This is your Vintage Sand crew. Good evening to Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to episode 5 of Vintage Sand, the film history podcast. It says so on our website, by the way. I'll tell you all more about that later, but we actually got our website up, which you can visit and leave comments and be snarky and have a lot of fun. So you should totally do that. Our starting off point for this...
And suggestions.
Yes, we take suggestions for topics. We've kind of got the next couple of months covered. But I got a perfect name for the Orson Welles one.
Yes.
In the when we do it in November,
yeah.
The Other Side of the Windbags. Come on.
No, perfect. I like it.
So I was going to say no trespassing.
So yeah, that would be us. Your Windbags here again, as I always say.
Or just Rosebud.
You know, Josh Cabot, John Meyer, Mike Edmond, not presenting ourselves as film experts or professionals in any way, just way too passionate lovers of film. I was telling John and Michael, I spent my last weekend at the Jean Vigo series at Film Forum here in New York, which was necessarily short. Remember, it's only 3 short films and 1 feature, La La Land, which is possibly the most beautiful sound film ever made. I'm not quite sure, but it's close. And P.S. If you have even heard the name Vigo or are interested in Vigo's work, his work is available on 1 DVD on Criterion, and it's a must have. I mean, there's a reason they still call the most prestigious filmmaking prize in France the Prix Jean Vigo, after someone who died 85 years ago. So we started, I think last episode or a couple of episodes ago, by saying that 2018 is kind of sticking out in our minds as a really, really good year for film. We were saying that last year at this time, you know, aside from Get Out and maybe Dunkirk, that it was not...
You guys like Get Out a lot more than I did.
I think it has legs. I
do too. Yeah.
But this year we already have films like we have Black Panther, which is debatable, but I think for a superhero movie it's up there. And First Reformed, and Sorry to Bother You, and my beloved Deborah Granick's Leave No Trace, and Black Klansman, and Eighth Grade, Blind Spotting. But did you guys see Annihilation, the Alex Garland film with Natalie Portman? Really good. He's the guy who did Ex Machina. With Oscar Isaac.
Which is one of the very few sci-fi movies that I really liked.
Check that out. It's beautiful. It's kind of odd, but beautiful. Plus...
And Isle of Dogs.
Right? Plus an Isle of Dogs, and, the Mr. Rogers documentary, the RBG documentary.
RBG.
Some people would put Incredibles 2 in there. Anything else you guys would put in there yet this year? Who saw the Redford movie?
I have a lot of catching up.
I saw the Redford movie yesterday.
And?
I hate to say this, you guys might jump down my throat, but I don't think Redford's made
Nothing but love.
I don't think Redford's made a really good movie since All the President's Men. I looked at his filmography.
That's probably his best movie.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about compared to. And I'm not talking about directing. I'm talking about things he's acted in.
Yeah.
3 Days of the Condor, The Candidate.
Candidate is amazing.
Even The Sting, which at the time I thought was kind of bland. I look back now.
It's a good movie. It's very entertaining.
But I mean, I was one of the few people who thought All Was Lost, frankly, should have stayed lost. I was so bored by that movie.
I kind of the sailing movie.
Yeah,
I kind of liked it. I thought it was a daring director move.
It was, but I mean, it was also you had nothing invested in the character because you didn't know anything about him. Yeah. It was just like, old man is sinking. And
that says. I thought of Old Man in the Sea. That's the thing that sort of solitary squaring off against nature. Who did Chandler did that? J.C. Chandler did that.
Yeah,
I kind of like that one.
So a lot of people. He got the New York Film Critics Award for Best Actor.
And
but nobody came to see it.
Well, at least he beat Scorsese for Best Director for Raging Bull. You got to give him that one.
Yeah. Well, no comment.
Yeah. And I guarantee you that Brad Cooper's going to win for Star Is Born. because
seen it yet?
No, I'm not going to see it. But I mean,
I hear it's actually pretty good.
I like Gaga. I might go. But I mean, they love actors who
True.
turn to, ask Mel Gibson, ask Kevin Costner.
That's Redford.
Yeah. So
Not as much. But I hear this is good, and anything has got to be better than the Streisand Christopherson.
That was truly awful.
That was a truly awful.
Although
movie.
I've tried to make it through the Frederick March, Janet Gaynor 37 one, that's a little rough. It's the Garland. It's just ridiculously
It's
good.
a little creaky. Although I keep forgetting that Dorothy Parker was one of the original writers of that. Yeah.
So this has been. There's not a ton I'm looking forward to this year. You guys? I mean, that's not out yet.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the. I can never remember her name. The guy who wrote The Lobster, directed The Lobster.
What's his name?
Yeah.
Lanthimos.
Which I thought was overrated. And then his last movie, the thing with Nicole Kidman, the thing about the kid who was a murderer or something like that I saw at SAG. I can't remember the name and I don't want to. It was so horrifying. But this movie that's, I think it's opening the New York Film Festival. It's supposed to be very good. About Queen Anne and two.
That's right.
Of her.
Well, and the Coens have something opening,
Coens
but
has, although I've heard mixed things
yeah.
about that, and
but mid-level Coens is still better.
I'm actually looking forward to First Man.
I am too.
Yeah.
And we're gonna argue out in our next episode, so stay tuned when we talk about our favorite film openings. We're gonna have a big flippant argument about La La Land.
Oh, yes, we
but Damien Chazelle well, maybe not that big an argument, but
Big.
Damien Chazelle, having done Whiplash and then La La Land, he's a director of interest for me.
He's
so
a very talented director.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to go see it.
Yeah.
But so
We digress.
No, that's all right. 2018 is we live for digression. 2018 has been and may go down as one of the better years of this decade or even this century so far for film, and that's good. So it sort of got us to thinking about what are the other great years in movie history, and the one that always comes up, of course, is 1939. And I understand that. I mean, look, just in Hollywood, Gone with
for traditional Hollywood movies,
Right.
I understand.
Yeah.
Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, Stagecoach, Wuthering Heights, Goodbye, Mr. Chips. Only Angels Have Wings, which never gets mentioned.
That
in
is
there.
That's
an
probably
excellent-
the best.
That's an excellent movie.
Mr.
I think it's the best of the bunch.
Mr. Smith.
Smith
And
is good.
It's good.
all right, but if you go global, which we are doing today, and you throw in Rules of the Game, which was
Is
1939.
it 39?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
that's why they
Well,
shut it
that's-
down so fast.
I thought it was 38, but
I did
No, he did Le Bête Humaine in 38.
I just
Another
watched
great
it
movie.
recently. It's a great
Rules of the
movie.
Game. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That
Oh my
the last, like,
Where he's
say,
addressing the,
15 minutes. That last 15 minutes is
Devastating.
devastating, and at the same time, I just love the line when one of the gentlemen says, like, but your class,
Right. No, and the fact that Renoir could paint such go back to Vigo, who tore apart the upper classes in Zero for Conduct. Renoir does the same in Rules of the Game, and yet you love these people. You care about them. There's even a kind of affection for them,
But I
even
think
though...
one of the things about Renoir is that Howard Hawks is sort of the same way, too, the way that they direct. It just always seems so effortless.
Right.
Yeah.
And you
Don't
just
notice.
get sucked in that beginning or whatever, and before you know it, the movie's over. It's like, oh, wow.
Plus, Renoir kills our theory that all great directors are bad people, because he was
Yes.
actually a lovely, happy person
Was he?
who,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Yeah,
his
yeah.
father
Don't
was
know
the
much-
painter,
Well, I knew
and
that.
grew up surrounded by artists, and everyone loved him. He was a success right from the beginning. But that, to me, is the great achievement of Rules of the Game, that he could have the guts to release, literally 2 months before the war began.
It was a scandal when it came out.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
know.
a
Yeah.
film that was like the rabbit shooting scene.
Yeah.
Where they go game hunting is just devastating. Like, these are the idiots who are leading us into War Round 2.
Right.
So, you might Rules of the Game might put
And will then-
1939
and will
over the
then
top.
support the armistice with Germany the agreement with them or whatever, or the aristocracy.
Vichy.
Yeah.
Yeah, until Claude Rains drops the Vichy water in the garbage can, and the war is won. Yep.
Louis, are you pro?
I go with the wind.
Free French or Vichy?
Love it. So, but it got us thinking, of course, and that's always a dangerous thing. And the result is this, which is, our episode number 5, as I said, which is called My Favorite Year, which is our greatest years in film. And to start with, we got 2 in the 70s and 1 earlier. So we're going to break up the 70s ones, and we're going to start with Mike, and we're going to...
You don't want to start with 1960?
No, we want to start.
Oh, you want to start with 1970?
Yeah, we want to hear.
All right. By the way, I was going to go with 1928, but you would have killed me.
Why?
I just had to put in a quick word for 1928. I mean, you've got Passion of Joan of Arc, which is the most beautiful film ever made. Sorry, Jean Vigo. You've got my favorite Keaton film, which is Steamboat Bill Jr., plus The Cameraman, which is even better in some ways. You've got my favorite Harold Lloyd film, which is Speedy, which, you've got Docs of New York, The Sternberg, which is amazing. Victor Seastrom's The Wind, which is Lillian Gish's best friend. Isn't that an amazing movie?
The Wind is
no one.
That's guys, one of my favorite silent films.
If you don't know that movie, guys, check it out. It's about a woman.
It's an excellent movie.
She plays a prairie, homemaker in the good old days who kind of, every year when the wind comes up, she sort of snaps, and it's brilliant, lovely. But I ended up on 1960s simply because it was a year where La Dolce Vita doesn't even make the list. That's how good a year it was. I know. Don't worry. Fellini's coming up next episode, I swear. Someone's going to talk about 8.5. But for me, no year marked, even 28, which is basically the transition from silent to sound. No year marked the transition between what was and what was going to be better than 1960. Everything changed. Everything was up for grabs. Genre was up for grabs. Structure. I was watching La Ventura again for this, and just, where is everybody? Everybody's way in the back.
But I love the way he composes everything. And there's something about that movie. I always say, nothing happens, but there's something about that movie, the way he composes the picture frame and places them, and sometimes the dialogue is like, doesn't really feel like there's anything going on, yet at the same time there's so much going on.
Everything's going on.
The subtext is so strong throughout the whole movie.
And I'm going into this by saying I am not an insane Antonioni fan. I mean, I like the trilogy he did after La Ventura. I love Blow Up. I even kind of like Zabriskie Point.
Really?
To some, just to capture.
I haven't seen it.
I was a
long
Doors fan, so
time.
it's.
And The Passenger, I think, is the cure for insomnia.
I love that last shot though, the long pullout.
Oh, it's
remember?
gorgeous,
stunning. But the composition, John, you're absolutely right. So, but in terms of American film, we could talk about just Psycho in the Apartment.
Yeah.
And but we've already talked so much about Hitchcock and Wilder, I'm going to go outside of America for my 3 films. We're not even talking, I didn't choose La Dolce Vita because I felt it was more of a personal breakthrough for Fellini. Which led to 8.5, which is still my favorite.
That's a good point.
Film of his, but it's extraordinary. Last Year at Marienbad, which I've complained in this podcast about 5 times already, that it's a film that I absolutely don't understand.
I definitely agree with you. It's like, because I saw it a very long time ago, and I'm the same way that you are about that movie. It's like, I know there's something
going on,
there,
though.
Right?
I saw it about 10 years ago at Film Forum, and I'm still...
but I don't
what
quite
the hell?
That does for film what Picasso.
It's very beautiful looking.
It's beautiful. But it does for film what Picasso and Braque did for painting with Cubism. I mean, there's plot there. There's beginnings and middles and ends. They're just kind of all happening at once, all over the place, and we never quite know. I mean, it's incredibly daring, especially since René was not one of the French New Wave crowd, and I do love... I'm going to keep watching it till I figure it out.
Then you tell me.
Exactly. We'll pass it on. Anyone, just email us, and we'll let you know what it's about once we figured it out. Black Orpheus was that year, which, although made by a French director, basically woke the world up to the fact that there's film going on in South America. Hello. And also a lot of good second-tier works by great directors. We have to mention this because Charles Aznavour died today.
Yes.
Shoot the Piano Player was 1960, Truffaut's second. The Bad Sleep Well, which is a really good Kurosawa film, not as epic as some of the others. Virgin Spring, which is a really good Bergman, not top drawer. And I think we got to throw Spartacus in there, even though it's not a Kubrick film as such, because he wasn't involved in the whole thing. It's I
think it's better than any of those
Sword and Sandal epics.
Movies.
Yeah.
But was it Anthony Mann that was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
original director?
Yeah, and Douglas
I
fired
forget
him.
what happened.
I think he got sick, or
I thought Douglas just
maybe
wasn't
Douglas
happy.
just fired him.
Yeah, I don't know. I was
And said to
curious.
Kubrick, "You owe me, so come direct this big monstrous epic." But my three, one Italian, one French, one British, are three very different directors. I have one director who's taking a huge leap after what was only slightly hinted at, and that's Antonioni with L'Avventura. I am not as familiar as I should be with his films from the 50s, like Cronica di un Amore and Il Grido, but who is exactly? But apparently he was sort of edging in that direction. I've got one director who just literally exploded on the scene. I mean, Francois Truffaut said that there was film before Breathless and there was film after Breathless, and whether you think that's a good thing or not, I completely agree with that. And then you have the legendary filmmaker who committed absolute career suicide, never worked in his home country again, and that, of course, is Michael Powell with Peeping Tom. I mean, he literally got run out of the country on a rail because of Peeping Tom. And you guys just saw it, so
yesterday.
we gotta talk about it. So,
Which one do you want to talk about first?
I'm going to do L'Avventura first,
Okay.
which as I think is to film what Camus or Beckett is to literature. I mean, the poetry of alienation. I mean, just complete isolation,
Yeah.
right? The landscapes, those incredible. But you know what I noticed this time is that it's not. I thought most of the film, from my memory, took place in the island. And it doesn't. There's
No,
a,
it
right?
doesn't, no.
Right.
No.
There's a whole lot that happens after the island.
No.
And everybody's sexy and everybody's beautiful, and it doesn't really matter. It's a complete abstraction. And it's interesting because Antonioni,
It's deceptively simple.
right. Like,
You look at it like a moment, you think, oh, it's just really simple. And then
Right.
keep
You can
looking
describe
at
it in one sentence.
Exactly.
and then
girl
you keep-
disappears,
and
they
then
don't
you-
find her, they move on.
Yeah, because it sets up that tradition. It's sort of a traditional mystery search movie or whatever, and then it says, "Aha! It's not what it's about."
Right? Nope, doesn't matter. But what's really interesting, looking at it this time, Anna, who's the girl who goes missing ultimately, was never really, didn't feel like she was there to begin with. No one's there. I mean, someone actually says that people are island. Patrizia, one of the side characters on the yacht, says people are islands surrounded by water. And that's what this film is about. And it's a pretty it's something that's hardly an original thought, but the way, as John says, that Antonioni showed it with the framing and these characters, and also the soundscape. The music is interesting, but I liked even better the soundscape of just the wind whistling and the ocean crashing.
Yes.
It's just like, wow, we are alone in this universe.
Yeah. And all these people that they're trying to connect, but they're not quite connecting. They're kind of missing each other. It's
Although I am reminded of the great Tom Lehrer's quote that if you feel you can't communicate with other people, the least you could do is shut up. But we can't. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
God bless you, Tom Lehrer, wherever you are, still alive at 90 something. And it's not just that nothing happens. Stuff does happen.
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
But it just feels as though we're looking at something really new. And no wonder they booted the hell off the stage at Cannes. I mean, it got a horrible reaction. Some people appreciated it, but it was, why am I sitting through 2.5 hours of nothing really happening? But
There's actually a lot that happens.
Right. I mean, in terms of events, but much more so in terms of emotions that are suppressed. And film had never quite found a way, I don't know if it was trying, of expressing that visually. And that's what Antonioni succeeds in.
I think also people were really put off by the fact because they feel that like he betrays the person they're supposed to go and search
because
for.
we never find her.
I read somewhere that Antonioni did film a scene where Anna's body washes up.
I've read that too. Yeah, they recover the body and then they decided not to use that scene. And I think if they did, it would have completely ruined the movie.
Oh, it would have been a different movie entirely.
I mean, and I just can't help thinking we're recording this at the beginning of October in 2018. We're all Claudia and Sandro. We're all, we observe tragedy. We stay around for a little while and poke around, and then eventually we give up and move on. I mean, that's the story of 2018. I mean, how many school shootings or other awful things happen, and we just sail on the yacht best we can. I mean, it's a survival strategy, but, in terms of alienation from each other, as John was talking about, and from ourselves, which I also think that's part of the subject here. And, plus 2 words, man, Monica Vitti, okay?
So she's great.
Right. I love her in Red Desert, Eclipse, and La Notte, but I really love her in this.
What about Modesty Blaze?
I did not... See, here I am on the lofty heights of film, and you've got to, drag me down to the bottom of the cliff.
Directed by Joseph Losey.
I understand, but that's not always a good thing.
Well,
we should do something.
It was actually on TV the other day, and I was watching it, remembering about L'Avventura.
Yeah. So I mean,
it's not a good movie.
A film that completely shifted the rules of what you can and can't do as a filmmaker in terms of what you show and how you express this alienation. Which is sort of the fundamental condition of modern man, a la Beckett and Camus. John,
so I have a question. What do you think at the end? Because she sees, I forget his name.
Gabriel Sandro.
Yeah. When she catches him with another woman.
Yeah, on the couch.
On the couch, whatever, and then he breaks down and starts crying.
Is it possible we found real emotion?
Yeah,
I don't know.
And she comforts him. So, I mean, did they finally really connect and start a relationship, or did they part ways and end up being?
It's funny. What I always think.
I always kind of what happens to them.
Well, I think you're supposed to.
Yeah.
But the only real communication that seems to happen is the bells. Remember when they accidentally ring the church bells?
I love that.
And then the other church starts ringing their bells?
Yeah, I love that moment.
It's an odd, lovely moment in an extremely ambitious, daring film. I mean, how if it got made now, it would not be well received. I can only imagine, what it was like back in 1960. All right, so that leads me on to film number 2, which is Breathless. And, on the Godard-Truffaut thing, I always come down on the Godard side, especially if we're talking about Godard, say, 1960 to 1967, from Breathless through Weekend. I can give or take the political stuff. I recognize the brilliance of what came after, but that 7 years was just an incredible run. And to me, if I'm comparing these films to other works of art, Breathless is like Follies, like Stephen Sondheim's Follies, which does the incredible trick of paying loving tribute to everything that came before, while at the same time completely destroying it utterly. Yeah. Utterly. I mean, remember, the film's dedicated to Monogram Pictures, and he uses all those old, the old devices like irises and things like that. Mm-hmm. So clearly he loves the old film, and clearly he is absolutely bound and determined to blow it up to smithereens.
I must confess, I do not like Breathless.
Go. Why?
Some of it feels amateurish to me. I know that it was done on a low budget, so they were restrained in some ways. I feel sometimes the use of the camera takes me out of the movie. I do not like the use of the music. It feels disjointed from the whole movie the whole time. Even though a lot of it's excellent jazz music, and I just don't think it's that well acted.
Come on. Is there anything sexier in movies than Gene Seberg?
She was beautiful.
New York Herald Tribune. Hello. I mean, and what a rescue of that career.
And also, I just don't care about Jean-Paul Belmondo, but that is a personal thing. By the
I
end of the
know,
movie, I'm like, I don't care that you just died.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'm in between. I'm in between you two. I like it more than you. I don't like it as much. I would say it's my favorite Godard.
It's important.
I think it's my favorite Godard.
I do understand why it's important and everything. I just
No, and I think the two obvious things are, the accidental invention of the jump cut, which which well told story that it wasn't Godard's idea. He had to get it down to a certain running time and didn't want to cut any scenes, so his editor said, "Well, let's cut out the boring stuff."
Yeah.
So you jump and you jump and you jump, and again, that managed to accidentally kind of reflect.
and that was actually very smart.
Right. Very smart. Well, it's always the editors. The editors are our unspoken heroes, right?
But I like the use of the music in it. I watched it on YouTube. I haven't seen it in decades, and I watched it for this broadcast, and I thought, I do like the use of the music in it. And even though you could say it's amateurish, I think it works for the story. And I have to say,
this sort of like low-grade criminal who thinks he's sort of narcissistic.
Well, he's bogey.
But when it was
thinks very, very highly of himself.
But when it was over, I thought, would there have been a Bonnie and Clyde without Breathless?
No, absolutely not.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
No, and in fact, and that's where I was going to go to transition because, no, that's fine. No, it's fine. Because, when the French New Wave sort of petered out around 68 and Godard and Truffaut had their split and everything kind of fell apart with the student riots and everything, that it didn't die. It got picked up in America. It came back to America and in the 2 years that you guys are going to be talking about. So there's a real connection here. Also, it's a real postmodern film. It's the first postmodern film. It's a film like all of Godard's films that is about film. And I guess you could probably say that Tarantino is the only Godard we deserve, because Tarantino's pop culture references are breakfast cereals. How about that box of Fruit Brewed in Pulp Fiction that Eric Stoltz is eating? Come on. And
I love that scene, though.
Yeah,
oh, God, I do too. And I'm
phone's
hanging up
ringing.
on this asshole. Yeah, exactly. Love that. Get it? I love, that whole movie. Did you guys, by the way, see the mashup with the scene from Pulp Fiction where they're interrogating the three guys and the Kavanaugh hearing?
Oh,
it's wonderful coincidence. It's on YouTube that his name is Brett. So you see Kavanaugh saying, "I didn't do it," and Samuel Jackson turns around and said, "Yes, you did, Brett. Yes, you did." He says, "I like beer," and then Samuel Jackson says, "Mind if I have some of your tasty beverage to wash it down?" Like whoever, we love the editors. Whoever you are who did that out there, God bless you. You're a genius.
That sounds great.
So yeah, but there's no Tarantino without Godard either,
true.
and that may be a good thing or bad thing. But at least it comes across as being a little smug, maybe. But the references in Godard are not to breakfast cereal or to cartoons. It's Faulkner, it's Picasso, it's Mozart, it's Velázquez, it's Rilke, it's Dylan Thomas, and I appreciate the aim, I appreciate the ambition. There's these little references in the film to politics, like Eisenhower's visit, which becomes a thing, and that becomes something that you get to 66, 67 to Made in USA and La Chinoise, and then into Weekend. Really becomes a huge thing in Godard, and then he becomes a Maoist and goes off the edge of the earth. Right. But I love the rhythm of that film. I have to say, when I've taught it, it's one of my students' favorite films. They really kind of.
It's well liked.
Yes,
that I know. A lot of younger audiences really, for whatever reason, really like the movie a lot.
It's like the way
it's kind of interesting how people who are much younger than us react to certain older movies.
Yeah,
I can never figure it out.
No, believe it or not, I have younger friends who think The Godfather's slow.
I know.
Yeah, well, no, I totally get that.
I don't.
Well, you and I have in Yiddish it's called Sitzfleisch, the ability to sit for a while and watch something and just enjoy it and not move.
Right.
So
we will talk more about The Godfather later.
Yes, we will. Coming up. So stick around. And of course Godard's famous quote about every story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, but not necessarily in that order. Which is lovely and has been appropriated by everybody. That's the whole thing. Say what you want about Godard himself. He's an arrogant ass. He's full of himself. There's all kinds of problems with him as a person, but as a filmmaker, everything that was so revolutionary and breathless is now showing up on NCIS and every TV show, from jump cuts to I mean, so it's become the language of film. And I just love it, and to me it still holds as I wish I'd gotten to see it in 1960, when it would have just like blown us out of the water.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I go to my last film, which was just, I was looking for an artistic work to compare this to, Peeping Tom, and all I could think of was Bosch. I mean, what people must have made of that. Because
Hieronymus Bosch. That's interesting.
Right, because everyone else is painting saints and Madonnas and Bible scenes, and there's Bosch with this like, holy mother of God, what's going on here? This sick, twisted, dark. What Bosch is? What, you're the art guy? You're mid 1400s?
I forget exactly.
Maybe a little later.
Whatever. Northern.
Yeah.
I guess considered Northern Renaissance. I mean, I wouldn't even put him in Northern Renaissance.
He's completely off by himself.
He is a movement by himself.
Right.
I think he was eating hallucinogenic mushrooms or something.
Had to be.
I don't know where that all came from.
And there is darkness in La Ventura. There's some darkness in Breathless, although it's kind of superficial and snarky. Lord knows there's darkness in Psycho, and even in The Apartment, spiritually, yeah. But
and La Dolce Vita.
Yeah, and La Dolce.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, yeah. But nothing like this. I mean, it's a complete. It gets more disturbing every time I watch it.
If I can give it the ultimate compliment, I watched it yesterday on Amazon. I wish I'd seen it first in a theater.
Yeah.
I really, really do. Because
well, the thing I was really struck by in the beginning of the movie, and it pretty much stays that way throughout almost the whole movie, is the look of the movie looks like a color studio film from, say, 1940.
yeah.
Very expressionistic.
Very,
The opening
very,
with the
very
very
much
cheap
so.
sets.
Very, very. I mean, I love the way the movie looked.
Yeah,
and
the use of
then
red.
It's not until towards the very end when I have a couple of those outside shots when he's at the library, and suddenly it looks like
the cops following him. Yeah.
Suddenly it looks like 1960 current, the current day.
Swinging Soho.
Right. And it looks real or whatever. The rest of the movie is like expressionistic is a good term.
I mean, and
it's an artificial look. The use of the color, everything about it.
It is very. I mean, it's an expressionistic film in that it gets us inside his head. We're seeing, what goes on in his mind played out in what to him is real life, which only exists when he's behind a camera.
Right.
I mean, so it takes the brilliance of Rear Window and the idea that we're all voyeurs and takes it one step further and is very self-condemning for directors. There's one point where Anna Massey's mother, Helen's mother, who's blind, says all this filming is very dangerous.
Yeah, she was
Wasn't
great.
she great? Wasn't
Who
that a
was
great
she?
scene? I
I've
don't
never
know.
seen her before or since.
In fact, she was the one character movie is like, oh wait a minute, can we stay with her?
Right,
I want to know more about her. I want to sit down and talk with her for a while.
No, she's all this film, and and of course, in the one time we get to see Mark's father, who's the villain of the piece. Mark is the serial killer, but the villain of the piece is his father,
And
the psychiatrist, played by Michael Powell. Yeah, I mean, and that's, boy, if that's not a self-condemnation, I don't know what is. But, I mean, there had been in the Powell press...
And the psychiatrist is very flip with him.
Oh, yes. It's like, you have his eyes. Yes. Or, we could have 3 sessions a week, this will be lovely.
Yeah.
Like,
he'll be fine in what, I think he said was 2 years or 3 years or something.
It's like, and then we lower the thing back down. It's like, no, thank you.
I just find it hard to believe that this is the same man who directed I Know Where I'm Going.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, okay.
Which is one of the most sweetest, beautiful movies I've ever seen.
And there's the darkness and obsession at the end of Red Shoes, where the obsession for perfection literally drives her to her death. There's, the obsession of Black Narcissus is sort of an interestingly
the sister who
misplaced sexuality, but
Yes.
but nothing like this. And no wonder people were horrified. The reviewers said one of the reviewers said it should be flushed down the toilet.
Now, why were the reviews for that so damning, and in the same year, Psycho, which I think is frankly, a far scarier movie?
Yes.
Well,
as far as being scary, yes.
Yeah.
Well, because Psycho could happen to us. Not likely that. I mean, Peeping Tom's a much more sort of a generalized philosophical
But I
film
remember
about
when
watching.
it was re-released in the mid-'70s, and there were pickets. People were picketing, and I thought, well, maybe I just shouldn't, go to this.
Yeah,
I avoided it because I heard it was a very scary, bloody.
It's really not that.
It's not.
scary.
It
wasn't.
You don't want to see any blood at all.
It's creepy.
Although a lot of younger audiences don't think Psycho is that scary. They agree that it's creepy. I think the first time you see Psycho, it's intensely scary.
Yeah.
But in Psycho, you have the distancing of the black and white too.
Yes, and Hitchcock purposely chose to do that because he didn't want it to be gory.
Yeah, this is.
And actually, and Peeping Tom really isn't gory.
No, it isn't.
No, there's no
Could you imagine if
visceral.
Tarantino made that movie today?
Yeah,
Oh, God.
that's right. No, but the fact is
They
that
pull
if
buckets of blood.
there have been tons of ink spilled by critics, both male and female, about the idea of the penetrative male gaze and how what a violation it is, which is a huge theme in Psycho. I mean, remember, I always think of the fact that in Psycho, right before the shower scene, he's peeping through the.
Oh yeah.
He's the hole he's drilled
he
behind
he moves a little.
and
which in the painting is the rape of the Sabine women.
Oh, I thought it was Susanna and the Elders. It's one of those things where men are driven to extreme action by their desire for a female.
Yes.
So we have to look that up. I'm not sure, but it's one of those. Yeah, it's a classical or a biblical theme. And the film just came out of nowhere. It played for a week. They pulled it. And I think because both Powell and Carl Boehm, who plays Mark, made this character so sympathetic. It almost would have been easier to swallow if he'd just been a garden variety serial killer.
Yeah, but Anthony Perkins in Psycho
I agree.
character
Yep.
is somewhat sympathetic
Sure.
too. Especially in the first. Through most of the movie, you don't really learn it's him until the end or whatever. Where he's talking about his mother and everything, and I mean, he's a very sympathetic character at first.
So
I just
Just because Carl Boehm sounds like Peter Lorre.
I don't know.
He sounds like Peter Lorre.
No, and John, that's a really brilliant connection because you feel horribly sorry for his murderer in M when the kangaroo court and he's being put on trial, even though you've seen this guy commit atrocities that are unthinkable. So I mean, it's.
I'm very perplexed by the reaction. I mean, definitely by the 70s, by the time I was an adult going to movies, I wish to God I had gone to see it because. Once again, I wish I had seen it at a theater. I guess Film Forum had it a few years ago.
It is. If you've never seen it, audience, it is definitely one to track down. There's a Criterion version available that is beautiful and nicely restored with some interesting extras.
Remember, La Dolce Vita when it first came out, that was pretty much condemned too because of the beginning and a lot of
but that was liked though. It got several Oscar nominations.
True.
Right.
This is true. Yeah. With Peeping Tom, it's like, oh my God.
And it was talking about how La Ventura is 60 years ahead of its time. We live in a time now, and I know this because I work with high school kids every day, that for our kids, something doesn't happen unless it's filmed. Unless it's filmed, it didn't happen. We are living in a time where every single minute is filmed, and we are voyeurs in our own lives and other people's lives, and somehow Powell saw that coming and, paid a heavy artistic price for it. But my God, what a movie.
I think that's a tragedy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, fortunately, thanks to Scorsese and other people, the film's reputation and Powell's reputation in general was restored.
Well, thank you for picking that because it forced me to watch it.
Forced you to watch it, yes.
And I'm very happy.
It's good for you.
And I was pleasantly surprised because I was ready to picket with the picketers, and I thought, no, this is really a marvelous work of art.
And so that's 1960. All of this in 1 year, and as I said, we didn't, Marienbad and Dolce Vita didn't even make the list.
The creepiest part of the movie is the very ending, and you hear the tapes of his father.
Oh wow!
And when he's playing it at 5 years, at 7 years, the different screens.
But then after he's killed himself, and then you hear the father, and then you hear his voice as a child,
not a very happy view of psychology as a profession, by the way. But
no.
so
obviously the father screwed loose too.
Yeah. But he was very well respected in the field. They mentioned that several times when he meets the psychiatrist on the set. He's like, "Oh, your father, great man, great, brilliant man." So that's 1960, and I thought I'd transition by I mentioned Weekend, which is sort of the end of that great period of Godard in '67, and the end of the film, very famously, the two title cards says "End of Film" and then "The End of Cinema," and with his usual modesty, but in some ways, at least in Europe, it kind of was for a lot of directors, but with the explosion of the studio system in Hollywood in 68, 69, and, the rubble that's left, and they say, hey, let's let the kids come in and direct, and what you get is that amazing period from about 69 to 75, 76 or so, where the directors ran the show, and I don't think it's a coincidence that both John and Michael's years fall within that period. So, Michael, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, 1960, a good year. I had a few honorable mentions for my favorite year that wasn't 1972. One was 1959, which I thought was an excellent year.
Anatomy of a Murder, I know
Anatomy
you're
of
going
Murder,
there.
Some Like It Hot. Wild Strawberries was released in this country that year.
Okay.
The Wild Strawberries came out.
It really came out
I
in
was thinking
58.
58.
But it was
57, yeah.
But you could say it was 59.
It gets really confusing
With the release
with
dates,
some
yeah.
of the European films. Sometimes they have a short release in Europe, and then like a year later it opens here, or sometimes it opens here for a couple of weeks.
Exactly.
And then it
which
doesn't
I will
really have a
which I will
general
get
release for a
to
year.
with
It's
Cries
really
and Whispers.
confusing.
But
Really confusing.
400 Blows.
Yeah.
That was.
I mean, revolutionary.
And North by Northwest.
And
I know.
No. Listen, I'm not.
Sorry, Josh. North by Northwest is a great movie.
No, it is, guys. All I ever said was I don't think
sit
it's
in the back.
I don't think it's as great as Vertigo. That's all I said.
No.
I recognize
Oh,
its
no.
greatness.
No.
But
I also happen to really be fond of 1962.
That is a good year.
That was a very, very
Jules
good
and
year.
Jim?
Jules and Jim, which I'm not.
Jules
John
and
and
Jim,
I.
I'm not crazy.
I'm
about.
with. Hey, we agree on something. Finalmente. Yeah.
But I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird, Lawrence of
Yes.
Arabia, Birdman of Alcatraz, Days of Wine and Roses, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Long Day's Journey into Night,
Yeah.
The Miracle Worker, Lolita, Sundays in Sibel, Divorce Italian Style, all from 1962. And I happen to love 64, which was a close second.
Strange Love.
Strangelove, number one.
Hard Day's Night.
Hard Day's Night, My Fair Lady. Beckett, Seance on a Wet Afternoon, 7 Days in May. The Servant.
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. By the way, am I the only one who can't wait for the sequel?
Yes.
I'm really...
You are literally the only one who can't wait for
I
it.
think I'm going to like the sequel. I saw the
see.
trailer, and anyway. But my number one year is 1972. That was the first year I was really an adult and I could go see anything I wanted to, and I saw everything. And I did some research, and there were 27 films that came out that year, which I'm not going to list.
Maybe we can
We're
put
not
that list on the
holding
website.
any weapons. Yeah, we'll put it up. No, we'll put it on the
Okay,
website. There you go,
fine.
John. Yep.
But there were 27 films made by either up-and-coming directors or veteran directors ending their careers that were very, very notable films.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to mention a few of the directors. John Huston.
Fat City. Yes, I love that movie.
Fat City and The Life and Time of Judge Roy Bean came out that year.
That was that year too?
Martin Ritt had two wonderful films that year, Sounder
Oh, beautiful.
and the comedy Pete and Tilly.
Which I don't
Walter
think I ever
Matthau.
saw.
Oh, see it. I think you can
yeah,
see it on
it's-
YouTube. It's. I think it's one of Walter Matthau's best performances.
Walter Matthau.
He's really, really good and very low key, but it's a comedy drama. Jolene Page is quite good in it, and Carol Burnett. It's like her first big film, and she plays it very straight. It's worth watching. Elaine May had what
New
many
Leaf?
critics think. No, that was the year before.
That was 71.
It's the Heartbreak Kid.
That's a good
Yes,
movie.
the original. Yeah,
The
which was
original,
lovely.
if anybody has had the misfortune of seeing the Ben Stiller remake, see the original Elaine May Heartbreak Kid.
It's a better sequel than The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Yeah. Ooh.
Maybe the worst movie of the decade.
Alfred Hitchcock made Frenzy, which
There
we've
you go.
talked about on previous broadcasts.
Anna Massey appears again.
Anna Massey, yes, and it's agreed by most Hitchcock fans and critics that it was the best of his last 4 films.
Sure.
And Joseph L. Mankiewicz ended his film career.
Sleuth.
His swan song was Sleuth.
Yeah.
It's
a fun movie.
It's a fun movie and not an easy play to film. And
No,
be
and
able
very
to,
well done.
and it was very, very well done. So, this, as I said, there's 27 that I have. We'll put it on the website, but I'm going to pick what I think is the top 3.
We don't pay by the inch, so it's fine.
What I'm going to pick the top 3 films. My third film, and I did it in order of
Good.
what I love.
Build up.
My third film is Ingmar Bergman's Cries and Whispers. Now, I will start by saying I don't think this is the best Bergman film ever made. And I definitely think that if you've never seen a Bergman film, do not start with this one.
Sound advice.
Because I took several college friends in '73 when it was out, dragged them to it, and a few of them are still speaking to me. And I had to drag them to another Bergman film that came out that was revived, Wild Strawberries, and then they go, "Oh, okay,
Oh, that's okay.
That
You
one
should have
is
taken
okay."
them to Tree of the Wooden Clogs. They would have loved you forever.
I don't love that movie.
Who does?
But I want to give a little bit of history, unusual history about Cries and Whispers. Bergman was having a difficult time getting it distributed here because his last 2 films were financial and artistic disappointments.
Was that Hour of the Wolf? Or?
No, The Right, and his first English language movie, The Touch.
Touch. Neither of which I've seen.
Which actually, I've just recently saw The Touch again, and I think it should be reevaluated. I think it's actually pretty good. So Roger Corman bought up the rights for $80,000.
Bless him.
Wow.
Yeah. And put it at one theater at the end of December, Cinema One, that's where I saw it. And it just exploded. It took off. It won 4 New York Film Critics Awards. Picture, actress, Liv Ullmann, director and screenplay. Only the second film to win that many Film Critics Awards in those 4. And it became, financially, up until that point, the most successful Bergman movie. Because it hadn't been booked in a Los Angeles theater, it wasn't eligible for Academy Awards that year. The following year, 1973 and 74, it got 5 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture of the Year, only the 4th foreign language film ever to be nominated in that category, and it won for cinematography. The story is very simple. It takes place at a turn of the century Swedish manor. 3 sisters and a maid. One sister is dying of cancer of the uterus. 2 sisters are attending to her, as well as the maid. And it's about, frankly, the love, hate, and need of these 4 women. And from what I understand, it is, I think, one of the most beautiful films ever shot.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's really.
I understand Cries and Whispers is taught in a lot of film schools just on its cinematography alone. It's
That's Nyquist, right?
Nyquist, yes. And he did win. It was the first foreign language film to win a technical Oscar, I believe. I'm not sure about that. The acting in it is superlative. We have 3 Bergman actresses. Harriet Anderson, who was the cute femme fatale from Summer with Monica, is the dying sister. The agony that she has, I mean, you just really, really feel that agony of dying. Ingrid Tullen, her older sister, who, in one of the most shocking scenes, I won't describe it, but well, I guess I could,
you could.
Where she mutilates her genitals in order to keep from having sex with her husband, whom she despises. Yeah. You can see why this is not a film that a Bergman, non-Bergman person should see right away. But it was popular, and I've never understood why it was.
I remember it doing well.
It did very, very well. It was a huge hit, and it played in cities where Bergman had never played before.
Do you see it as sort of building on Persona, and that female relationship,
Somewhat.
or just completely going left turn?
I was going to say, because I wanted to ask you about that, because I know some people see it as sort of like a departure, him going in a different direction, whereas some people say there's a lot of biblical allusions in the movie.
There is. Oh, absolutely. There's a scene with
Because to me, I think Persona is the one that really where he starts to go in a different direction. The movies are more symbolic
Yes.
and religious
Abstract.
oriented, and then Persona, it's also the look of the movie, the way he was filming, more close-ups, more psychologically oriented.
Although there are a lot of Cries and Whispers is almost all close up. The intensity of it.
A good student of Carl Dreyer.
Yeah, absolutely. And Liv Ullmann, who never looked better, more beautiful. She's just wonderful in it, all three. Plus the maid, who I only saw in one other Bergman movie, Face to Face, Carrie Swan. And she plays the maid who, basically the story is that she's the only one who really loves the dying woman.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And truly loves her. And it's a simple story, but it's just beautifully told. And the red outs in this movie, it's so intense. And the art direction, it should be seen, but if you haven't seen a Bergman movie, see Wild Strawberries, Seventh Seal, Smiles of a Summer Night, Scenes from a Marriage, Fanny and Alexander. See at least one of those films first.
Easier.
And what about The Color Red?
Yes. The color, what does it stand for?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it's.
I'm not sure why he chose to do that, but I know that Bergman is not a director who ever did anything arbitrarily.
By accident.
And what's weird about
Which
it
is one of the things I always liked about it.
as beautiful as this is, it is only his fourth color movie.
Right.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why he worked with Sven Nykvist.
Yeah,
He knew
right.
that man knew what he was doing.
Absolutely.
goodness.
I also want to make before we get off of Bergman, I want to make a tiny, tiny brief shout out to Liv Ullmann as a director. She has become a wonderful director. She's directed only one film that I saw, a film called Faithless, that Bergman wrote about 1998. I meant to do a little research on it. I have it. But it's quite good. And then she directed what I consider the best Tennessee Williams production I've ever seen, and that was the Australian production that was at the Brooklyn Academy of Music a few years ago with Joel Egerton and Kate Blanchett of Streetcar Named Desire. It is the first time I've ever seen Streetcar Named Desire on stage where I didn't want to run home and watch the movie.
Right, yeah.
This one made you forget about Brando, which is impossible. She really, and I think she must, because unlike Bergman is very, very unique in that not only did he direct movies that he wrote, but he also
continued directing
a lot of theater
and opera
and opera and stuff. And you could say Mike Nichols and Elia Kazan did that, but they didn't write their films. Elia Kazan wrote a couple of them. The less said about the arrangement, the better.
Oh, I think I left something in the oven. Wait, let me.
Okay, so that's my third favorite film.
Well, let's just pause for a moment and say that Bergman's one of the great directors of all
Yes.
time. There's just no doubt about that.
He is, and at the time I saw it, I went over and over
I think
again.
I don't know, I get the feeling he's sort of out of fashion now, which I don't understand.
I think he's become more so. There was a period, I remember, when going to the film forum and when he was still alive, and people booing at Through a Glass Darkly.
Really?
At the end of it, yeah. And so I thought, but I think he's coming back.
I love those early '60s films.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. And they're making plays of his films. Scenes from Marriage was made by the director who's doing that. Oh, sorry. Yes, that's John's here.
Toes stepped on.
Through a Glass Darkly was made into a pretty good production with Carey Mulligan. So I don't think Bergman's out of fashion. And
These things,
Maybe he's coming back.
these things wax and wane. I
Yeah.
mean, you'll see Wells will come back when they release Other Side of the Wind. There'll be a huge wave of interest in Wells. Right now, I tried to show Citizen Kane to my students, and they hated it.
I
It
don't
just, like,
get. I don't get that.
I know.
I mean,
That's-
that one.
that's
I don't-
another episode.
I can understand
Yes,
other Wells films,
That's another.
That's
but
way
not
another-
Citizen. To me, Citizen Kane is just so much fun.
Well, we're talking about it next episode. so.
Okay, that's true. Okay, my second movie is as different from Cries and Whispers as can be. And this is the first time I've experienced the cinema work of Louis Buñuel.
Oh, that's the first one you saw of his movies?
Yes,
Oh.
absolutely. I was totally unfamiliar with him.
Oh.
And unlike Cries and Whispers, which is not a good introduction for anybody who hasn't seen a Bergman movie, The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie is a wonderful, wonderful way to start with Buñuel. I think I was thinking about it when you guys were talking about the rules of the game. It's just,
Yes.
it's Buñuel at 72, making fun.
Well, it's so playful,
It is one of the most playful and funny,
but very serious at the same time.
but very serious. But you do laugh. For those people who don't know the story of it, it's basically 6 Parisians, 5 Parisians, and one from the mythical country of Miranda, who is a diplomat, are trying to have dinner together, and something always stops them.
It's like Exterminating Angel, which I actually like even better.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I don't know if you know this. Stephen Sondheim
Oh, yeah, it's his last musical.
and
there's an opera coming,
David
too.
Ives are working on a musical of both Exterminating Angel and A Discreet Charm of the
They're going to
Bourgeoisie.
combine
really?
the two,
Yeah. Well, I think what they're going to do is it's going to be one act of one and one act of the other. That's what I'd heard.
How are they going to do that?
I don't know.
I don't know, but it's got to be better than the last thing he did, Bounce. But
Wow, yeah.
yeah, that's a whole other.
That's
not a whole other episode.
really
That's a whole
digressing.
other podcast.
Yes, but and hopefully he's going to finish it before he dies because he's about 88.
Yeah.
Anyway, but The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, which he wrote with Jean-Claude Carrier,
Yeah.
who's still alive, bless him, at 87 and still working. He won an honorary Oscar 3 years ago. He writes all the time. Bearable Lightness of Being,
Right, which
is one of his adaptations.
great job of an almost unadaptable novel.
But anyway, 6 friends trying to get together for dinner, and I almost hate to say what stops them. Among some of their problems was the host forgets what night that they're supposed to have. The manager of the restaurant where they're supposed to have dinner is dead in the next room. Is being laid out. The military invades their home to do maneuvers.
Just beautiful.
I know, I just love the way he just goes off in this direction. Yet at the same time, it never feels like, oh, wait a minute, what movie is this? You always feel like they're in that same
always
movie
feel-
or whatever. He controls it somehow.
And the actors are wonderful. Fernando Rey, who many people know as the heavy
French
in the French
Right.
Connection, plays the diplomat from Miranda. We were talking about last year at Marion Band. Delphine Seyrig, who is just charming. Stephanie Ardant, who's best known for Babette's Feast and just died a few weeks ago, is wonderful. Everybody in it is just... And some of Buñuel's, you see, you like Exterminating Angel. I don't like it
Love it.
as much.
Love it.
Because I find some of his earlier work to be just a little bit too heavy.
Yeah, well, and he's ever since Chien Andalou, he's been in
Yeah.
29. He's been going after that same group of
Right.
people with a lot of success, I would add.
But he gets lighter.
Because even in that, in the beginning, there is humor, a lot of humor in that movie.
in Chien Andalou,
Oh yeah.
and L'Âge d'Or too.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
his
I remember the very first time I saw that was in college, and the thing is, a lot of people just didn't get it. They just like, oh, what's and I was laughing through most of the movie, and people thought I was nuts. It's like, don't you get it? It's like it's not supposed to make a whole sense or whatever.
No,
it's
called surrealism,
not a
folks.
surrealist movie or movement and everything, and which allows him to go in these different directions, but. Discreet charm of the bourgeoisie. I said it always
Perfect.
feels in control.
Oh,
too,
yes,
at the same
absolutely.
time. And just always keep thinking of that moment when they finally seem to be ready to sit down and have dinner, and then the curtains go up and they're on stage.
In a play that nobody knows the lines to.
Genius.
Any actor who's seen that movie will definitely understand.
No, and I love how successfully he attacks his own. It's his own class
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
He goes, but also in the I'm an early '60s Buñuel guy, so Viridiana, which came before, he goes out of his way to show that the poor are not saints. That they're not. He's basically going after,
He's after everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
successfully too.
And anyway,
Sacred Cows.
I do recommend if you haven't seen a Buñuel movie, that's the perfect film.
Yeah, don't start with L'Age d'Or.
No. And if you haven't seen it, just please see it, because it's just, you will laugh and you'll think, and it's just.
And he made most of his movies, like Bergman, are pretty low budget.
Yes.
No, yeah.
People wanted to work with him for very little. And 1972, Discreet Charm did win the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film.
That's right.
Was his only Oscar. I think he had never even been nominated before, which is
Probably not.
hard to believe. My number one movie
Didn't see this coming.
is, to my mind, the only truly great movie that's been a popular hit. I mean, I can't think
Well, it's definitely in that
category. I mean,
Definitely in that category.
what I consider, a popular hit is The
it
Godfather.
huge?
Like top 10 box office.
No. It was the number one movie.
Number one.
Yeah, it was
It
the number
knocked
one
off
when it
The Sound of Music or Gone with the Wind. I forget which was won by
yeah,
them.
I don't remember, but the run that it had, it became the number one
One
box
movie,
office
and
hit
it
of
was
all
for
time.
3 years until Jaws.
Yeah.
And The Godfather, to me, is just a perfect movie. I had read the book. I didn't like the book. I think I read half of the book.
The book is Pulp Fiction. The reason that they did the movie was because the book was a huge
Oh,
hit.
absolutely. And that was, I think, part of the appeal.
How did they let Coppola direct it after what he hadn't done not much of a track record
Well,
so far?
they Paramount just saw The Godfather as just like
The Brotherhood.
another
Gangster movie.
It was not they didn't have
No.
a high budget for it or whatever.
It wasn't.
They were against Brando being in it.
Who else was? I know Olivier was considered for the role. Who else was? Rod Steiger?
Probably. I've read a number of times that like almost every actor in the world wanted to do that part or whatever. Some people talking about maybe Kirk Douglas at one point.
Because of the Brotherhood.
Yeah, it's and they didn't want Brando because
Brando had a terrible reputation for
and his previous few movies didn't do so well.
terrible.
Didn't do
During
so
most of the '60s, most of the Brando's movies.
Yeah,
tanked.
and there's the famous thing with, because Coppola kept pushing for Brando. Mario Puzo said that's who he had envisioned doing the movie when he was doing the book, and there's that famous so-called audition film that Coppola shot with Brando, where he puts something in his hair to make his hair look darker, and because he said. I mean, it's on YouTube where Coppola describes it and everything. It's pretty funny or whatever, and he's just talks about how he said, well, it says in the book, he got shot in the throat, and he has a raspy voice, and he changed his voice and started doing it, and one of the producers was looking at it, it's like, no, not him, not his. It's like, oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's 2 hours, 47 minutes. There is not 1 second I would cut from that
Not an
movie.
ounce of fat.
And oddly enough, I not having finished the book, there's nothing I would actually add to it either. I don't feel that
And there
there's
were
anything-
additional scenes shot, but they didn't use them.
No, but I have seen them in the TV version.
In the chronological,
Yeah.
where they put all three of them together
Yeah.
and run it, which is
And most of the scenes that I've seen, it's like, yeah, that was a good idea to cut that.
Well, then, like, for example, there's a scene where they go to the hospital to see
Vito?
Don.
No. To see the day of the wedding, they go to see the hospital to see Abindondo, the consigliere or whatever, when he's dying, and there's a bit between the Don and Michael, and he refers to like the medals on his chest and everything, and you do this for strangers and everything, and then he has a little comment like, when, what are you going to do now? It's like, he says he's going to go back to school. It's like, you come see me and everything. Let's talk. It's like, and why do you do like these acts of bravery for strangers? And actually,
That was probably in the book.
It's in the book, and the thing is, it does sort of explain some things. You don't really need it, but also
You don't need the
But also,
explanation.
if you watch it, it's usually on the DVDs. It's not. It wasn't very good. And Pacino just doesn't seem to be quite have the character. It's not really present or whatever, and I can see why they cut it.
Who else was thought of for the role of Michael?
For a while, the producers were asking maybe James Caan should do it.
Right.
Or whatever. They had him do an audition for it. They were pushing for Redford and Ryan
That's
O'Neal.
what I thought.
Ryan
they
O'Neal,
wanted,
I heard.
They wanted a star. They wanted a
of
name, and
course.
Coppola said, no, he should have the map of Sicily on his face.
Which he did.
And
That was Pacino.
and some of the film that those edition tapes they were seeing of Pacino, they didn't like. They didn't think he was very good. And Pacino has said himself, like, they're not going to get me, I don't care kind of attitude or whatever. And why do they keep asking me to come back? And that was Coppola. He kept sticking him in there.
Well, it is perfectly cast.
Yep.
From Brando, of course, to Pacino, to Caan, to Richard Costello, to Vic Damone.
Abe Vigoda's in
as
it.
Johnny Abe Vigoda, the wonderful singer who just died, who played Mama.
Al
Martino.
Al Martino, who played...
No, who played Mama Coleo.
Oh, God,
Oh.
I forget her.
She just died.
She's excellent.
And she's not an actress; she's a singer. And
She's in part 2.
yes, but
I'll remember her name tomorrow afternoon or something.
it's just, to me, it's a perfect movie. And I remember when it came out, everybody I knew went, even people who almost never went to movies went to see this.
was such a
It was a popular movie.
It was a phenomenon.
Wasn't the
really was.
release? Wasn't that the first movie to be released in like 500 theaters at once instead of?
It was not a slow release.
Right.
It was New York at the time. I think they had it at 10 theaters.
I think that's what they did
Yeah.
for a short time,
And then they
they were really surprised by the reaction.
Oh, yeah.
They saw all the people lining up the night before to go when it first opened and everything, and then they said like, "Oh my God, we got a hit," even if it's not that good.
And it was in a first run for like months.
Yeah.
Several months, and happily it did wind up winning 3 Oscars. Not for director for Coppola. That was a big
Fosse one, right?
Bob Fosse for Cabaret, which was a real upset. And Cabaret actually got most of the technical awards too. But to me,
The Godfather is one of those movies that if you've never seen, you sort of enter this world and you just let it wash over you, and it's where all the different aspects of making a movie come together in such an excellent fashion. The cinematography by Gordon Willis, the script,
the Prince of Darkness.
the script, the
Yes.
acting, the production design by Dean Tavares.
The music.
The music.
Oh, Nino Rota.
The
Nino
music
Rota.
is great.
cross yourself whenever you say his name.
And don't forget about the color orange.
And Diane Keaton and John Cazale.
Yeah.
And
Oh, John.
it's just like wow.
Yeah.
And,
Cazale.
and I think
Such a great
taken in pair with part 2, which you're going to be talking about, John, it may be the best film, the most emblematic film ever made about the American experience, about what it means to be American.
Which is why I love the beginning so much.
Yep.
That beginning is so great. It's so simple. It's so great though that the sound of the trumpet, the theme, the black screen, and what's the first line? It's like, I believe in America. And then it starts to go up, and you hear Bonacera talking about.
Now I wonder if people see as I said, I have friends who think it's slow. I wonder if you see it the first time on video, if that's a problem.
I don't know, but it was, I think, 2 years ago, my nephew, who would have been 16 at the time,
Yeah.
he watched it for the first time,
On video.
and he loved it.
Okay, well, then
So,
I don't get it.
I guess it varies from individual, but I have heard that with a lot of younger people, they think it's slow. They think it's boring, they don't get it or whatever.
No, and
Which I
it's
don't quite understand, but
just amazing that you've got Bergman, Buñuel, and Coppola, turning these out in 1 year. It is just an incredible.
But as I said before, there were other directors. Peckinpah had 2 movies that year. Louis Malle. Fellini had Fellini's Roma. But a lot of people like that film.
yeah, I don't think it's one of Fellini's.
Bob Rafelson had...
King of Marvin
King of
Gardens.
Marvin Gardens.
That's a good
Love
movie. That's a
that
good
movie. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What did Bogdanovich do that year? Was that
What's Up, Doc?
Yeah,
which is fun.
Which is cute.
It's one of his better movies. And Robert Altman had Images. And that was a very, very good year for film.
We have, and we have to really try at our age. You guys are a little older than I am, but to avoid saying, that was the good old days when stuff was good and now stuff was crap. So I know I have to avoid that all the time. So, so with that, and Godfather's a nice natural bridge to what John's going to talk about, because John's going to skip to part 2, I assume. And
yes, I'm doing 1974, so why don't we just start talking about Godfather Part 2 now?
Go.
Okay.
And I don't even think it's the best movie of that year. So I think it's behind a certain Roman Polanski film, but there you go.
Some people will disagree. I am one of them. No, I think one of the big differences between the 2 movies is that I think you can make the argument that the first Godfather is more perfect. It's a tighter film. It's also much more closely a linear narrative.
Right.
Whereas Godfather 2, you're doing the cross-cutting.
It's about memory.
It's about...
It's a more ambitious film.
Yes.
It's a more ambitious film. Also, right away, because of the way the movie was done, because Godfather, there was so much pressure on Coppola all the time. They wanted to fire him. He didn't have much of a budget. And then after it was such a big hit, it was like, oh, we want you to do a sequel, and you can do what you want. So he had money, and he was pretty much left alone.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is, I think Part 2 is emotionally deeper.
Yeah, I think you could make that argument.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of that starts with the cross-cutting, the contrast between the rise of the father and then what happens to Michael. And one of the, I think, the biggest, starkest contrasts is with Vito. I mean, you see what happens to him. It opens when he's a child, and you see what has happened to his mother. His father is killed by the local mafia chieftain. Then his brother is killed because he knows which is assuming that he's going to seek revenge. The mother goes with young Vito, who's only 9, to go see him, and it's like, please spare my child or whatever. And then she gets killed, and then he's smuggled, onto a ship to America. That
images on the ship.
That image of seeing the Statue of Liberty, I will stay with me forever. It's
Absolutely.
so powerful.
It's the great American story. It really is.
It is. It's all about the immigrants, and what happens. And you see what has happened to Vito and what it is that's motivating him, because when he becomes a young adult, he sees the same thing happening again with Finucci. And so you understand why he chooses the path he does. And when Finucci says to him, he's like, your family will be ruined. That's what really clicks it off for him to really go overboard.
Right.
Whereas Michael, as the movie progresses, becomes consumed and ruined by vengeance.
Right.
I mean, which leaves him completely alienated at the end. He ends
from his family, from Kay and and
Well,
and
the
I
brother
think
that he killed.
the last 10 minutes or so is absolutely devastating. And when you have that flashback of Michael thinking about December 7th, 1941, there's a family gathering for
Right.
the father's birthday.
Yep.
And of course, Sonny is like,
Yo, what's the matter with you?
what's the matter with you? What the hell did you went to college and you got stupid? And then Tom starts to talk to him about like, why didn't you discuss this with us? And Michael is rather insulted, like you're talking about my future with my father. Fredo is the one that reaches
Right.
and
Yes.
congratulates him, and he goes to shake hands with him, and Sonny slaps it out of the way, which is so perfect because Sonny is an agent of chaos.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, if you really want to blame someone in the first movie, you can blame Sonny.
Oh, of course. Sonny.
He shows his hand.
Right.
In the meeting with
to
Sollozzo,
the governor.
and that's what motivates Sollozzo to try to
Yeah, exactly.
kill the father.
Exactly. Also, every time I see it, I always forget the fact that Sonny and Paulie
Not Paulie.
is it
the
Paulie? Who's the son, who marries
Carlo.
Carlo?
Carlo, who marries Connie.
We're buddies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that.
Yeah.
Because in part one, you have no hint about that.
Yeah. Carlo's a snake.
Oh God, yes. But you can almost. Well, you
And
can't.
Talia Shire is actually not terrible. I mean, unfortunately,
Oh,
everyone
she's
remembers
good
her
in it.
for
She's very
for the
good.
Rocky
She's good in it.
movies, but
No, she's very good in them.
She's actually a good actress. She just, I don't know.
Yeah. But there's also something in part two. There's something about the scenes when Vito's a young man, where the emotional subtext that is so strong in those scenes is that little moment where he's just carrying groceries down the street, yet it's so moving. But all he's doing is walking down the street
Yeah.
carrying groceries. I want to go back for just a moment to Godfather 1 because of the use of the color orange.
yeah, well,
And it's Dean Tavalara said it was just sort of like by chance because he knew so many things was going to be with the cinematography was going to be dark and light and everything. There's very contrast, and he chose orange and oranges as a way to highlight certain things, but it also becomes a signifier for something bad that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or something evil, or
Yeah, brace
someone's gonna
yourself.
get shot, kind of thing. Something's up or whatever. In the opening of Godfather 1 at the wedding, you see Abe Vigoda tossing an orange in the air.
I didn't even think of that. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
and Vito dies in
When
orange.
Vito, when
Well,
it's
not-
jars in the, but when he
When
he's
shot.
when
Yes.
he's shot, he's buying oranges,
Oranges.
and
Yeah.
and it's funny because apparently Coppola insisted, no, I want that overhead shot and seeing the oranges going all over the place.
which is very
Because
memorable.
apparently every once in a while Gordon Willis and Coppola would fight a little bit. 'Cause-
Well, I can imagine the studio must have been horrified. They must have been like, we can't see anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, probably. I mean, Gordon Willis is brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
That is
cinematographer.
to me, in Academy Award history, one of the biggest
Yeah.
oversights. The fact that in the 70s that Gordon Willis,
Yeah.
Godfather 2,
Yeah.
All the President's Men,
Yeah.
Annie Hall, Interiors, Manhattan,
Yeah, Parallax View.
and Parallax View,
Right.
and he didn't get nominated until 1983 with Zelig,
Yeah,
which
Which I love.
Which
but-
which I
love
love.
too.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
But it was like I remember at the time going, finally. And they did give him an honorary Oscar right before he died. But I mean,
Yeah, I've heard that he was difficult to work with sometimes.
yeah, but so is a lot
what?
of people.
I know.
You know,
I know.
I just that I
When
never
Luca
could
Brasi
understand.
goes to go talk to Talia at the bar,
Oh,
I mean, first of all, you see that the window, the etching, and it's fish.
Right.
But then you have that you see the orange sign and the orange wall and everything. It's right over like, something bad's gonna happen. When Michael goes to the restaurant, you see that orange neon sign. It's blatant.
When he kills Sollozzo and
Yeah.
McCloskey.
Yeah, which to me is maybe my favorite scene in Godfather 1. Because when the first time you see it, and if you're not familiar with the book, right at the very second you think, oh, is he going to do it? Is he going to cross over?
I love the fact that they don't
Show subtitles.
show subtitles in that scene, that they're
Right.
speaking in Sicilian. I love that.
And in Godfather 2, there's the moment after Abbandondo's father, who's working for him in the grocery store, and Finucci comes to the store and he forces him to give away Vito's job to Finucci's nephew. And when he goes home and his wife is cooking dinner and he takes out a pear, puts it on the table. But then when you see him later as the established Don of the neighborhood, he's buying oranges.
Oranges. Yep.
It's brilliant.
No, every last detail. And the fact that he also did the conversation in that same
Right, which is the next movie we'll bring up.
Whoop, there. I thought you were going Chinatown, but all right.
No, we'll do Chinatown last.
Good.
Conversation. I don't know about you guys, but it's a movie I've realized that a lot of people have not seen.
Oh, it was not
No.
a hit at all.
Oh, well, it was done on a pretty low budget.
And
it made a small profit.
Did it make a profit?
It made a profit because it didn't cost that much to make.
Because I remember it kind of came and went in Minneapolis. It was there like 2-3 weeks. I did go see it. I liked it. And then when it got nominated for Best Picture, it was like, oh, well, good for them. But I was surprised because
It's a great movie.
It didn't really
Also, way ahead of its time.
absolutely.
Way ahead of its
Well,
time.
and it's still very appropriate as far as the theme of
Surveillance. And
Let's just, I'll give a little background here or whatever. First of all, Coppola wrote this in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And he said that he was influenced by Blow Up. That was his inspiration for doing the movie.
That makes sense.
And also the character, Harry Call, played by Gene Hackman, is based on an actual real person who was a surveillance expert. But yes, the themes of loss of privacy,
it's
alienation. I mean, the Harry Call character, he has no friends.
No.
There's no friends.
No.
And he definitely suffers from guilt. And there's a theme somewhat of voyeurism and betrayal. And eventually he becomes justifiably paranoid, the corrupt corporate power, and personal responsibility. He's been hired by someone to trail a young couple.
Right.
And as he's listening to all the different tapes over and over again, he hears, he'd kill us if he had the chance. But as he keeps listening to it over and over and over again, it brings on different meanings and everything, and you find out that on a job he did before, there were 3 people who were killed, and he feels responsible for that. So he's trying to prevent that in some way. Robert Duvall has a sort of a cameo as the director.
That's
He's
right.
only referred to as the director. Harrison Ford is his contact.
Right.
It's a great
This
cast.
is pre
It's a great cast.
Harrison Ford.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
before
famous.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
So,
Well, but he had been in graffiti.
In American Graffiti, but he
Yeah.
wasn't really that
yeah,
famous yet.
yeah.
Bob Felfa.
Yeah, but Bill Butler did the cinematography, which is excellent. Walter Murch
Sound.
headed the editing and the sound design. We have to talk about Walter Murch for a
Oh,
moment
yeah.
because just an extraordinary
Just what he's done with
force.
what he did with Touch of Evil.
Yeah, yep. And he was involved with Apocalypse Now too.
Mm-hmm.
No, and that's always a danger we get into, with anything like this, is that we always tend to focus on the directors. And, by extension, we were talking about editors before, we don't necessarily give enough credit to everyone else who makes these things happen.
Right. And the score is beautiful, even though it's very simple. It's
Yep.
just a piano.
Who did the
by
music?
David Shire.
David Shire.
David Shire.
Yeah.
Her
Talia's husband.
yeah, her husband.
Yeah, it's an
He
excellent
really
score.
keeps it in the family, doesn't he?
He likes
Yes,
to do that.
until it got
He
to
likes-
Sophia in Godfather
likes to
3,
do
it
that.
was fine.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. But that film is undergoing a renaissance too. It's
Godfather 3?
Absolutely.
I
It
don't
is-
think it's
a
as
good
bad
movie.
as everybody
It's
said.
a good movie.
It's not as good as the first two.
There's one. I mean, if you want to really criticize it a lot, you have to accept the fact that the character of Michael has changed.
Yes.
It's not the same character anymore.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you think there should be a Godfather 2.5. How did he get from
From
the
A to B?
ending?
Yeah.
Because at the ending of Godfather 2, that last shot of him is years later. Mm-hmm. His hair is gray, his face is lined, he's alone, just sitting there, doing who knows what.
And
You
actually,
have to assume he's alone in that house at that point.
and actually, in Godfather 3, I get a kind of a kick out of Talia Shire.
Oh yeah.
I think she is so much fun in that
Connie
movie.
rules.
Yeah.
Yes, she
Yeah.
does.
No, they should fear you.
Well, so we have to do an episode on sequels because the one it's always film people always talk about is is there a sequel that's better than the original? And
And sometimes Godfather Part 2
Godfather
is
might qualify, but that's another
One
episode.
of my friends who says that The Godfather is slow loves The Godfather 2. We've never really talked about it. It's like,
Well, and as
okay.
John says, it's a much more ambitious film in terms of the structure.
Yeah.
It's Sergio Leone tried to copy it with Once Upon a Time in America, which was also jumping back
Yes.
and forth in
So-
time,
Yeah.
and has its moments, but
depending
doesn't
on the
quite get
version
there.
you see.
Well, yeah, his original. Oh, poor Sergio.
Yeah.
Well, the original version is so long.
It is, but I prefer the original.
love
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, the American version of what? They cut an hour and a half out?
Uh-huh. And put it in chronological
Yeah.
order.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
Bless them. And so to Mr. Gitz.
Well, let's just mention the cast, though.
Oh,
of
yeah, sorry about
Godfather,
that. I
because,
jumped- I leaped
because
in.
everyone is excellent in it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Well,
Gene Hackman.
we've had conversation. I'm sorry.
Conversation,
Yes, yes.
Oh, you want to talk about?
Michael Gasso in The Godfather 2 is
Well,
one
the
of
thing
my.
that's so funny is that most of the reviews that came out though praised him.
Oh, I know. He got
and
a
a lot of people criticized Part 2 when it first came
Mm-hmm.
out, but praised him.
Yeah,
Talked about how brilliant
he got
was.
an Oscar nomination for
I
it.
think he's okay in it.
He takes me out of the movie a little bit.
What do you guys think of Strasbourg?
I like Strasbourg.
I like Strasbourg.
In that-
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I ever liked him in anything else, but I really liked him in Godfather 2. He seemed to do that.
And I do think that in obviously De Niro is excellent,
Oh,
but
my
I
gosh.
think Pacino's performance in Godfather 2 is one of the great film performances of all time.
Yeah, I can't argue.
Sold.
I can't argue.
I mean, he becomes a
Mm-hmm.
monster. Like as I said, he's consumed by vengeance, and also he sees himself as a martyr, which is sort of his falling or whatever, because he didn't see himself doing this. Whereas Vito, you can really understand why he ended up choosing the path he did.
Right.
But it's
Michael-
totally organic. It's believable in every...
Oh, yeah.
That transition
Oh, yes.
is believable in every
yes.
moment.
Most definitely.
And once again, John Cassell.
Yeah.
I am. Who's excellent in the conversation.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yep.
And Alan Garfield
Right.
and Harrison Ford is good in his
And
little part.
even, what's her name?
Frederick Forrest and Cindy Williams.
Cindy Williams.
Cindy Williams.
I always think of Laverne or Shirley.
Hello.
But yeah,
And at the end, we have a theme of alienation. At the end of the conversation, he's ripped apart his apartment because he finds out he's been the victim of surveillance.
Right.
I mean, there's this very creepy phone call saying, "We'll be listening to you."
I'm ashamed to say I have not seen it since it came out. It
Yeah.
never,
Yeah, and he's
almost never shows anywhere. Not even
know.
on Turner.
I know.
I don't know why Turner doesn't show it.
I don't
Because
know.
it's not that graphic of a film or anything.
No,
Nope.
no, there's not. There's one little
I-
scene in it or whatever where we see red. That's it's
No, I'd like to.
Yeah.
Do you have it?
Yes, I do. I can.
Maybe I'll. Yes. Please lend it to me.
On-set negotiation. That's what makes this work, people.
Before we go to Chinatown, let's just mention a few of the other movies that came out that year in
Oh, yeah.
1974. First of all, Brooks had two of
Yeah.
his best three movies.
Yes.
Oh, my
mean-
God, yeah.
Yes.
Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein.
Yes.
So
yes.
I suggest that if you're going to watch Godfather Part 2 and The Conversation in Chinatown, you make sure either you watch the two Mel Brooks movies afterwards or maybe in between their three movies.
Sort of a palate cleaner, yes, exactly.
Lenny came out that year,
Yes.
which never shows.
Never shows,
No.
Good
ever.
movie. Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Wonderful.
Altman had two movies come out, California Split,
Split.
and Thieves Like Us.
That was just on the other night on Turner.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Gambler, which you've never seen.
Carol
is a
Rice,
good
yeah,
movie.
with James Caan. Great movie. Very good movie.
Lacombe Lucien.
yeah.
Devastating.
That's a,
Murder in the Orient Express for
which
fun.
is on tonight.
Which
midnight.
I kind of love.
Oh, it is on tonight.
At midnight. Yeah, I think it's Andy
Very
Coates.
controversial documentary, Hearts and Minds, about
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
about Vietnam, sure.
yeah. Wells had F for Fake come out.
Was it that year?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, it was. Parallax View. So it was a good year.
I also want to throw in one of my
And
favorite.
Scenes of a Marriage came out, the
Right.
movie version, but I suggest to everybody out there listening, if you have access to it, to watch the original TV version, which is really much better. He condensed the original TV version into a film that was released in 1974.
You didn't mention Amarcord.
73?
Amarcord,
Or is that- you consider that 73?
I am very confused about Amarcord because I think it was nominated for the Oscars for 75.
Five, but it won the New York Film Critics Award of 1974. The
It's
same
really
thing.
confusing.
It's the same thing that happened
But
with
yes,
Cries and Whispers.
Amarcord is a wonderful film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really, I think,
His last great one,
really
I think.
great
Yeah, absolutely, Mike.
film.
Yeah. So let's go on to Chinatown.
Oh, my.
I want to make one more
Sure.
honorable mention. Robert Aldrich's The Longest Yard, which is a guilty
I know
pleasure.
you like that movie a lot. I don't care. For
I
it
think
much.
it is so much fun, and I know people who hate football who like that movie.
Best Burt Reynolds performance,
I
you
think
could argue.
it's kind of an uneasy mix of veering from, say, to almost serious drama to slapstick or whatever.
Yeah,
just
I
don't
consider
think
it a
works.
comedy.
I don't think
Really?
it works. Yeah.
I didn't see the remake.
Well, I
with,
can't believe you guys didn't mention the Redford Great Gatsby. My God.
Which Coppola tried to save, doing, I think, a rewrite on the
he
script.
was listed as a
Yeah.
screenwriter.
Yeah.
If I would have sued to get off.
Yeah, seriously. Alan Smith, did that, baby.
Apart from Sam Waterston, that is one of the worst
Woo!
movies.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
horrifyingly bad.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Mia Farrow should burn all the prints of that.
I'm surprised she hasn't. Talk about no chemistry between the leads.
So let's go on to Chinatown.
Chinatown.
Oh,
Yes.
my.
Let me just start by directed by Roman Polanski,
Good
screenplay by Robert Towne, cinematography by John A. Alonzo, music by Jerry Goldsmith. And the music we all know is great in it, and it was done in a week.
Yeah, because Polanski didn't like the original score.
Yep. Okay, I want to ask something. Do you guys see Chinatown as sort of an homage to film noir? I do not.
No.
No,
Some people see it that way. I don't see it that way.
absolutely
at all.
not. No, I mean, I see nothing less than the most eloquent condemnation of our decaying institutions in the
Yes.
year of Watergate, 1974.
Well, that, but
I
also
mean,
it is. I will give you a little background. It is loosely based on a real incident.
About the
Alice
water?
Mulwray is
Yep.
based on William Mulholland. He
Right.
was a civil engineer who was responsible for building the infrastructure to provide a water supply that allowed Los Angeles to
Become
grow into
Los
a big
Angeles,
city,
yeah.
whatever. But that was years before the movie takes place. He changes quite a bit, but he was involved with building a dam, the St. Francis Dam. It failed 12 hours after he and an assistant had given a safety inspection, and over 400 people died.
that sounds about right.
So, yeah. Which brings us to one of the major themes in Chinatown, which is corruption.
Oh, God. And those very few scenes that, Michael, you say this all the time, that John Huston is in.
Ooh.
It is among the most terrifying. I mean, it's all your worst. And conversation gets us there, too.
The girl.
Right. Mr. Gets, is it? Just that behind everything you see are these forces lurking that you just absolutely have no idea that are running everything.
Especially the
And-
Jack Nicholson character.
Yeah.
The entire movie, he gets to a point and learns something else. Oh, it's not quite what I thought.
Right.
And then he learns something else. Oh, it's not quite what I thought. And then he learns something else. Oh, it's not quite what I thought. And of course, finally brings him to the famous line. She's your sister. She's your child. Your daughter. What?
My sister and my daughter.
Yeah.
And I still can't believe that Polanski really had this in his mind, but at one point he had wanted Jane Fonda
Oh, Lord.
to play, because he was not
Oh, everyone hated Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway, including him, but he...
But she's excellent in it.
She is. I think it's her best performance. I think
I do
it's
too.
Nicholson's best performance.
Agreed.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
But what I think it was in the back of his mind was to have Henry Fonda play Nicholas Cross.
That sounds typically Polanski
Which
perverse.
would have
I
been-
can see Henry
And
Fonda
they're playing-
possibly playing that part, but not the two of them together.
No,
It's a sick joke.
It would have been too sick of a joke, and it would have taken everybody out of the film.
Yeah.
It would have been stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Instead, we got on Golden Pond, which was almost as sick a joke.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my knight in
let's-
shining armor. Sorry, I had to. That. At least it didn't beat Chariots of Fire for the Oscar, so there you go.
Another winner.
I just want to be your friend.
Oh my God.
And oddly enough, the play is actually kind of funny, but they sucked out all the humor from in that movie.
No, we digress.
We
From
digress.
one extreme to the other.
Yes.
We must mention the cast of Chinatown, because
Oh wow.
Jack Nicholson, Faye Dunaway, John Huston, John Hillerman.
Yep.
John
Yes.
Hillerman's excellent in it.
Creepy.
Burt
boy,
Young.
Yeah, Burt Young.
Diane
Although
Ladd.
I'm not crazy about Burt Young in the very beginning. I think he does a little too much in the very
Really?
beginning of the movie, the opening scene.
And how about,
the
Polan-
rest of the movie is excellent.
See,
Yes.
I was totally unfamiliar with Burt Young. I mean, he didn't really become famous until
So Rocky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And
That's
then you
true.
have Polanski's little golden shining
Yes.
moment, kitty
His
cat.
little
Little kitty
cameo.
cat.
His little cameo. Hey there,
A nosy
kitty cat.
fella, huh, kitty cat?
Hey there, kitty cat. You know what happens to nosy fellas?
Oh my God, brutal.
And I mean, John Huston is, boy,
I mean,
evil personified, but the character is so real.
Yes.
absolutely.
He doesn't twirl his mustache.
No, not at all.
Or anything
Not
like
at
that.
all.
And I mean, as an actor, I generally found John Huston to be a great director. I usually found his acting kind of hammy.
Yeah,
not in
not,
this.
not in
Nope.
this. No.
Not in this. It's
Nope.
the one time. He's actually pretty good in The Cardinal.
No, and you know, we've argued before about There Will Be Blood, and you know, you've said that, you know, Houston is able to do in those 3 or 4 short scenes what it takes Day-Lewis 3 hours to do in There Will Be Blood. But, you know, it's the same kind of character. And as much as I love There Will Be Blood, I really can't argue with you, because the less of him, the more terrifying he is.
Yes.
And at the end, and I'm sure you're going to talk about the ending, at the end when he walks away with Catherine, it's just devastating.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the themes that are, because I mean, one of the major themes is that we've already talked about is corruption and dishonesty in government and authority figures.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, Noah Cross, the John Huston character, is evil. We're not really sure. I mean, the first time you don't really quite understand what's going on or whatever. I mean, you maybe have a taste that something's not quite right with him,
But not
you don't,
that.
You don't know.
You have
don't
no
know.
idea why he wants to
But
find the
also,
girl.
I mean, the John Hillerman character is an accomplice to murder.
Sure.
Yep.
Because,
But he's a good family man.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Lou Escobar, who is the police
The cop,
lieutenant at the end of the movie, you're not quite sure about him. He may be
On the
part
take,
of it on the take.
he may not be.
He may not be, but
He wants him to drop it.
Yeah, that's right.
He knows who Noah Cross is.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. And poor Jake is, I mean, he gets out of there because he doesn't want to be involved with that. He wants to try to help people. He's, in a way, he's sort of a schnook. He's
But-
trying to do the right thing. He's already been a victim of corruption. Does he have any friends? I don't think so.
No.
Was he a victim of corruption, or did he make a mistake in the original?
I think it's
the
a little
Iris
of both.
Ling
We
case?
don't know for sure. I think it's a little of both.
There's
Yeah.
resentment.
Yeah,
Definitely
on him.
resentment, yeah. Yeah.
and I forget. Does he get kicked off the force, or he leaves the force because of that?
We don't know.
You don't know for sure. I think he leaves the force because of that. I mean, it's all very vague. He says, I tried to help someone,
Right.
Is it
and,
men-
and she died because I tried to help
Is it
her or
mentioned
whatever.
in that unfortunate sequel?
The two Jakes.
I don't remember.
No, I don't. I blocked that out of my memory as soon as I could.
Everybody has.
People who try to do the right thing are punished.
Polanski.
Yeah.
That is the Polanski theme.
And that's another thing is the common man is unable to fight this corruption, no matter how hard they try.
In Polanski, the good guys always lose.
I mean, when
every
we
time.
have that scene when they go to the orange groves, he's trying to find you learn that the water's being diverted from them, and these guys they're losing their crops, their farms, they're going to lose everything because they're diverting the water.
Yep.
Which goes back to Noah Cross, because what he wants is the future.
Future, Mr. Gibbs.
Mr.
The
Gibbs.
Future.
He wants more.
How much money do you have? I don't know. How much do you want?
Yeah.
It's funny.
No, there's great. It's a great screenplay.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah,
is a
well,
great
and
screenplay.
Town had just done Last Detail, and he
Right.
did Shampoo. I mean, that was an incredible run
And he
for
was a
him.
script doctor too. And
Oh,
because
yeah.
he wrote a scene for The Godfather too. The scene.
Which one?
The scene between Michael and his father in The Godfather, when he says, like, what's bothering you, I can handle it or whatever, and he tells him, I never wanted this for you. And he starts to feel, I saw, you could have been,
such
Senator
a-
Corleone, Governor Corleone.
Just wasn't enough time, Michael.
It's such a marvelous scene.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we talk about the ending?
Of Chinatown.
Absolutely, because it goes from being a Town ending into a Polanski ending.
That's right,
Right.
because it wasn't the original ending, and Town now says that
Yes.
he agrees that Polanski was right.
Made the right
Finally.
decision.
He was right.
Yeah. But yeah, for years he wouldn't even speak to him. Apparently, Town was so mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should mention the original ending had I can't remember.
It was much more complicated.
Had
and
Dunaway
that's-
getting away,
Right,
Yeah,
Evelyn,
but I
Evelyn
think-
lives, and
yeah,
but then having her die later or something.
Yeah, it was very complicated. It's
It would have added at least another 20 minutes to the.
well, that was I
running
think that
time.
was another reason why Polanski decided to do what he did or whatever.
But it was the right choice.
It was the right choice. It's a devastating
oh my
ending.
God, when he just John Huston, after he's been shot in the arm, just walking away with Catherine.
And and then and what's the first thought you have?
Oh my
Exactly.
God. Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
For those of you who haven't seen it, we won't tell you.
But
Also, there's that moment with Escobar, and you think, well, so it was
Right, as Lou,
as Lou now on the take with Noah Cross, also whatever, because then he keeps saying, "Get him out of here, get Geddes out of here, get your boss out of here."
and that's I mean
And
not
famous last line.
Yeah, and not for nothing is the image of the Godfather. The logo is the puppet master.
Yeah.
From the I mean that's
Yeah.
all of your film. Not so much the Bergman and the Buñuel, which are much more out there, but the American ones are all about this. These forces operating behind the shadows,
Right.
controlling your life in ways you couldn't possibly hope to understand,
Right.
and pray to God
Yeah.
that you never find out.
Yeah.
And again, this happening right around the time of Watergate, and
Yeah.
it's perfect. It's so of the moment.
Yes, very much so.
And that last line in Chinatown becomes a verbal correlative for all that we can't
Yes.
understand, all that is beyond that we'll never
Yeah.
be able to penetrate.
It's Chinatown, Jake.
And it's funny considering what a downer that film is. And it came out the same summer as The Parallax View.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chinatown was a hit. Parallax View was not.
It was. I don't know if it was a hit for like a long time now.
I mean,
And
it did very well.
It did well when it first came out.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was I'll have to look that up. I'm not sure if it was an extended hit or whatever. Oh, Parallax View is like the ultimate paranoia movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
it
boy.
really is. It's a good movie, but
It's a good movie,
It's
but-
incredibly paranoid. Though.
I have to be honest. I've only watched it once.
I can understand why. I can understand
It's
why.
just like
All right,
Yeah.
so there it is, everybody.
As I said,
oh,
you got to watch Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. You have to
Please.
watch
Yeah.
all his movies.
in between.
completely.
absolutely.
But I told you guys my new favorite line in Blazing Saddles is at the end in the commissary when they crash through into the commissary and the guy dressed up as Hitler and someone says, "Hey Jerry, how you doing?" And the Hitler guy says, "They lose me after the bunker scene." It's just little lines like that.
And it has to me one of the greatest female comedian performances ever. In
Oh,
film.
yeah.
Is Madeline
Yes.
Kahn as Lily von
Oh yeah, she's
Stupp.
great.
I'm tired of playing the game. And there it is. So in a long summation, so I go with 1960 as sort of the dividing line between modernism and postmodernism in film. And Michael goes with 1972 and John with 1974, which are sort of a piece. I mean, just an incredible... It sort of makes sense because those ideas of Antonioni, of the French New Wavers, of those guys, cross the ocean, come back, and influence the Coppolas, the Scorseses, the De
And they
Palmas.
broke ground for them because starting in the well, really early 70s, when directors were given more
That
control over
glorious,
what they were doing.
very brief period before
Yes.
Michael Ovitz and the Money People took over again in the
Yeah,
late
it is.
70s. And
And then Jaws came out and everything was supposed to be a
good
blockbuster in one weekend.
A good indication of that was a documentary I recently saw called Hal, which is about Hal Ashby.
oh, brilliant.
And they talked about his 7 films of the 70s and then his downfall in the
Well,
80s.
that was a little cocaine fueled,
yeah,
wasn't it?
no. According to the film, it was more interference with the distributors. I mean, they just kept taking away the films from him.
He did have a drug problem.
He always smoked
I'm
weed.
not sure that that was the main reason for his downfall. I have read before that he sometimes would just take too long to do things.
Yeah,
Perfectionism.
but in the
That'll do it
70s,
to
but
it.
he was never interfered with in the 70s.
And made
Yeah.
one great film after another.
Yeah.
So, and you know, we have a group of directors here who are trying to, you know, both pay homage to what came before, and also completely shatter it and create something brand new, which everyone's here succeeded in doing. So, and that is our favorite year. For the next episode, we're going to lighten it up a little bit. Yes, we are. And we're going to have a knockdown, drag-out brawl about our favorite openings of movies. And here's a little preview. I'm going with La La Land, and John and Michael are not going to be happy about it. So, and then a preview, November, set your clock, set your alarms. November 2nd, The Other Side of the Wind, the first quote-unquote new Orson Welles film, comes out. You know, the first new one since F for Fake, I would guess, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it has to be.
so we're talking 45 years, and we
If you
will.
want- if you want to count the restoration of some of the
Yeah, I know.
Othello and
Touch of Evil, and we will focus our November episode on Orson Welles, who we've kind of barely touched on, but we will. So Vintage Sand is, as ever, a 5 9s and a 4 production, produced by the legendary Melissa Cabot. Thank you to Mama Sue for the space, and our huge announcement: the website is up, people. It's not just a mirage. www.vintagesand, all one word.com. Stop by, make some suggestions for topics for us, give us some feedback. We'd love to hear what you have to say, and we'll see you next time for great movie openings.